Is it okay for Jussie Smollett to act pro-Black in order to get Black support? What say you, sir?
All right, to answer the question, I say no, it's not okay. And I'm not going to get too heavy into this because, as you've stated already, we've already spoken on Jussie Smollett in a prior episode. I believe it was episode 93. It was 92, 93. You all can go back and look, check the videos, especially if you're subscribed. And if you're not subscribed, get subscribed. But we spoke on Jussie Smollett in a prior episode. So I'm not going to get too crazy into any details about anything in particular, but to just answer the question straight and direct, I say no, it's not okay for him to act pro-Black in order to get Black support. The reason why I say it's not okay is because where in his career has he ever shown to be pro-Black? And I understand that people might have different definitions of what pro-Black means. People might have different outlooks on what pro-Black means. But I think pro-Black does have a general definition to it that most, if not all, Black people can probably agree with, even though there might be distinctions and variations in different degrees to what pro-Blackness looks like. But generally speaking, just the general definition of pro-Black career, where he is shown to be someone who is quote unquote pro-Black. Now, I will admit, he's not somebody that I necessarily followed like that. And I understand that he's been in the entertainment industry for a long period of time. I know his sister, Jussie Smollett. I know she's been on TV for a minute. I remember her when she was on Full House. So really, I remember the Smolletts, I guess, as a family, or maybe just the kids coming up when they were little. Obviously, when we were little too, because we're all around the same age. So while we were growing up, they were growing up, obviously. So they've been around for a minute. That's what I'm trying to say. The Smolletts have been around for a minute. But within that time frame, I just haven't seen any pro-Blackness from him. I haven't seen it even from a peripheral, because like I said, he's not somebody that I follow. He's not somebody that I was really knowing about like that. I've heard of him. I remember he was on the show Empire. That was probably the time where I really saw Jussie Smollett, was in Empire.
Me too.
Outside of that, I just heard the name. Maybe I've seen him in other things. I can't remember, just being real. But Empire was the show where I can say, okay, this is Jussie Smollett. I know who he is now. But
same.
Yeah, but outside of that, he wasn't known for having a pro-Black reputation. I've never
even heard of him before Empire. Like, not being rude towards him or his career.
Right.
He might have done something, before that, and I just wasn't aware. But I've never even heard of him before Empire, like, at all.
I mean, I've heard the name, but I have, and I'll just say this: I probably have not seen him in anything besides Empire. To be honest, I'm sure he's been in other things, and like I said before, maybe I might have seen him in something. He might have made a cameo or something like that. But to me, that's neither here nor there, because obviously if I've seen him and he made a cameo somewhere, I've seen this prior to watching Empire, I wouldn't have known who he was. But Empire was that show that really made it clear, okay, this guy is Jussie Smollett. Okay, so yeah, like I said, outside of that show, even in the show, he's not playing a pro-black character. But outside of the show, because we have to look at the real person, I just haven't seen it. I haven't heard about it. I don't know anybody who can speak on his behalf and say, well, yeah, Jussie Smollett has done X, Y, and Z and blah, blah, blah. And he doesn't have that reputation. I'm going to just boldly say it like that. Now, if I'm wrong, somebody can show me his credentials or whatever credentials he might have to show, okay, well, he has been pro-black throughout his career. He has been doing X, Y, Z. He has been advocating on behalf of black people, this, that, and the third. If somebody has that paperwork, somebody has that documentation, cool, and I'll admit that I'm wrong. I'll say, hey, you know what? Yeah, Jussie was putting in work. Jussie was pro-black. Jussie was advocating on behalf of black people. Damn, I was wrong because I had the proof. I had the paperwork. I could check the files and I could see, okay, he was doing, advocacy for black people or whatever. So for him to all of a sudden act pro-black, and when I say act pro-black, when he got his sentencing, he basically made it seem like, oh, well, this is happening to me because I'm a black man. Prior to that whole thing, he had the whole gay Tupac thing that he said, which I just think was some bullshit. Like, why would you even say something like that? When I heard that, and I'm sure when other people heard it, and I know that people have talked about it, but it's like, why would you even say that? Like, what would make you say that you're the gay Tupac? Like,
first of all, for me, it's not even the gay part. It's just don't compare yourself to Tupac because nobody has the right to compare themselves to Tupac. In my part, I don't care, gay, straight. It doesn't matter about one's sexuality. Everyone that knows me knows to each their own. And
right.
I love people for who they are as individuals. But nobody on this planet has the right to compare themselves to Tupac. You are not Tupac. That's some crazy shit to say. Period.
Right, it is. And, period. And when he said it, it was just really left field. But I'm gonna just sum this all up by saying that basically what he has done is he has said things, I guess, to get the support of black people, to get black people to support him through his situation. And my thing is, dude, you can't have a track record of, I guess, being neutral. I'm gonna just use the word neutral because, like I said, he doesn't have that track record of being pro-black. And when I say pro-black, I mean black support, black advocacy. That's what I'm talking about. Things along those lines. He doesn't have that track record. And I'm not the only one saying this. I'm really just repeating what others think as well. And I mean, I think it for myself too, because like I said, me personally, I haven't seen it. So,
okay. And yeah, I think that's probably what it is, because there is some evidence of the opposite, but I think that's probably fair because you may just be unaware.
Yeah. And like I said, if I'm wrong, I could see the files, I could check it and say, oh yeah, he did XYZ, or he said XYZ prior, way back when or whatever. Because the thing is, okay, he could have said or done stuff within recent years, but my thing is you got to have a little bit more of a longer track record. Like the files have to go out a little bit further. So,
well, before this incident, he has not only supported, but he has actually financially donated to Black education organizations, nonprofit for families who've lost children to gun violence and all kinds of stuff, actually.
Okay, well, then I stand corrected in that regard. Where, yeah,
but in all fairness, you said you might not have known. That's in all fairness, you said that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so
yeah. And I, like I said, I'll stand corrected on that. So you've informed me on that part. So I guess I'm wrong in regards to, I guess, the financial aspect. He's shown up and has done stuff along those lines, and that's cool. But I guess I look at it as I've never heard him be vocal. I've just like, when I think of somebody who's pro-black, I'm thinking of somebody who's like
Umar Johnson.
Yeah, I was just about to throw, like a Umar Johnson, like Dr. Let me say Dr. Umar Johnson.
Yes, Doctor.
Yeah, let me put some respect on that.
Let me
put some respect on the credentials.
Dr. Umar Johnson, I apologize.
Right, Dr. Umar Johnson.
Black community doctor, because yes, sir, you did get.
And he might be like further, like on the far end of the spectrum,
right?
Which is fine. I'm all for it. I love that. Even the Dr. Boyce Watkins, who always advocates for Black people. So basically, what I'm saying is, I haven't seen Jussie with a platform where he's consistently advocating for Black people. Because the things you mentioned, like I said before, I will stand corrected on the fact that I didn't know that stuff. I know it now, so I can say, you know what, Jussie, all right, cool. You've donated, you can put your dollars behind certain organizations. Okay, but I guess what I'm saying is I haven't seen him where he's had a full-blown platform where he's really stood on some like pro-Black shit, where he's like unapologetically Black.
Right.
Because the people I listen to, like, for example, Dr. Umar Johnson, he is unapologetic.
Yes.
Straight like that, like full-throated, just
right.
And I would say the same about the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, somebody of that nature, somebody who's just unapologetic, That's what I look at as far as pro-Blackness. Now, somebody could look at it to a lesser degree, like where it's not, I guess, on those ends of the spectrum. And that's cool because everybody has their own view on it. But for me personally, I look at that because that's what I aspire to myself, to get to that level where I'm just really unapologetic. I'm still working on it, but, so that's what I look at. And I just haven't seen that from Jussie Smollett. So to me, he just never had that image. So when he, gets himself in a crack, when he gets himself in a jam, it's like he's just leaning on Black people. He's like, oh, this is happening to me because I'm Black. And it's just like, come on, man. Like, really? We're really going to do that? And then the thing that irks me also, and I'm gonna wrap it up because I know you need to speak your piece. But the thing that irks me, and we've touched on this on the other episode with the homophobia aspect. So his brother, Jussie's brother, came out and basically blamed the Black community. Now, to be fair, he didn't put all of the blame on the Black community. He did say the system was broken, and I'm paraphrasing because I can't remember everything verbatim, but he did place the blame in different directions. To be fair, I'll admit that, but he also put some blame on the Black community, talking about the homophobia and saying, oh, well, it's because Jussie's gay that Black people don't want to support him. And I really disagree with that statement. I'm not disagreeing with the fact that there's homophobia in the Black community. Of course, I don't disagree with that. Homophobia is there. Homophobia is in every community, as we spoke on in the other episode, but it's really highlighted and it has like a really heavy microscope when it comes to the Black community. But for him to point that out, myself and from what I've seen, many others online and offline who have spoken on this whole Jussie Smollett situation, we disagree. It's not about him being a homosexual that we just don't want to support him. That's not the reason. The reason why he might not be getting the kind of support that he wants is because he was caught in a lie. What happened was a hoax. why would anybody support that? For what?
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't make sense to me. So, but for him to say, well, it's because he's gay, I just think it's just lame. I just think it's really lame because you're leaning on that. It's like a trope now where like if a black homosexual for some reason doesn't get some kind of support or advocacy or whatever the case may be, it always leans into black men, and they pick on black men in particular, straight black men. They say straight black men are just homophobic. You know,
some are.
I'm sorry, say it again.
Some are.
Yeah,
I think you happen to be honest, and it's not because you are my co-host. It's because I have a lot of respect for you as a human being. I happen to believe you are very progressive in that you are what I would consider to be an appropriate prototype for how we would hope to see our community. You articulate yourself appropriately. You stand up for Black women, even when you disagree on certain aspects of it. You approach it with an intelligent response and a way to bring appropriate dialogue between Black men and Black women, as opposed to put negative stereotypes on either parties or to create environments that makes it difficult for us to dialogue. And I really respect that. And that's who you are.
I appreciate
that. And I think you're welcome. And I think because of that, you have a lot of Black men around you who are the same way, which makes sense. Because normally when someone is of a high intelligence and a high IQ, it's not very common that they would have people around them who are not. I mean, look at your group. All of y'all are stupid lyrical. It wouldn't make sense for you to be in a group where any one of y'all weren't lyrical, right? Because that's not who you are. Third world is like, you listen to it and you're like, oh shit, that really made me think, that's who the three of you are. And so it makes sense that that's probably your general environment, is that you are going to hold people around you to a certain standard because that's who you are. And I think because of that, you're absolutely right that in your situation, in your environment, you don't see that commonly, which I appreciate. I hope that continues to be the case for our community and we continue to grow in that direction. But I do happen to believe that homophobia is a serious problem in the Black community, specifically in Black men. And I think it's not all, because nothing is all. Just like all Black men aren't bad fathers and all Black moms aren't baby mamas and all of that, all Black men aren't homophobic. I'm not saying that by any means whatsoever. But at the same time, I do happen to know that there are Black men who just don't give a shit about what's going on with Jussie Smollett because he's gay. Not because he did or didn't do it, but because he's gay. And in their opinion, there is this massive agenda to demasculate Black men and et cetera. And I'm not getting into all of that about whether agenda exists or not. I'm not even getting to all that. But because of their belief in that side of it, they are electing to not support Jussie because he's gay, not because he did what he did, which was a lie, which I'm going to get into all of that on my part, but I just wanted to elaborate that I think because of who you are and because you are to a certain extent a little more progressive, that's not to call our community unintelligent or inarticulate. I'm not saying that in any way whatsoever, but you are not typical. You are a prototype for what we want to see our community be. And that's my only point there.
Well, definitely appreciate the words. Wow.
Oh, no doubt. It's just the truth. It's just, it's not even because you're my co-host. It's a level of respect, and what I have noticed about your character is what I was getting to.
Thank you. Like I said, I very much appreciate that. And I'm a work in progress. Of course, I'm not perfect. I have my faults, and like I said, I'm a work in progress myself. So I'm striving to be better every day. I fall, but I get back up,
exactly
when I can. I get back up every time, but I fall and I stumble and I get back up. But yeah, no, I totally get what you're saying. So basically you're saying like, I'm in an environment where I'm not, I guess, exposed to the homophobia. And I agree. But at the same time, I have been around Black men who basically have exhibited those behaviors where they're like, oh, well, I can't be around X, Y, and Z because he's gay and they might try to come on to me. And this, I've definitely been around that before. I've been around these people. I've heard them say it. So, yeah, I mean, I know it exists. I know it's there. But I guess I just look at things from I'm always looking at things from the media angle, and it all for me boils back down to the system of white supremacy and how it basically wants to portray Black people as a whole, but I guess in this case, Black men. And I look at how Black men are always demonized for everything, and how the face of the Black man tends to go on everything that's negative. Like when we think about the deadbeat dad, who do people think about? They think about a Black man.
Right.
If we go to rape culture, who do we think about? We think about the Black man. It's like anything negative out there in society, the Black man's face is put on it. When we think about criminality, who do people think about? A Black man. So
similar to Black women for certain things, unwarranted pregnancies and being ratchet and
being a baby mama,
being the baby mama and being uneducated. Yes, I totally agree.
Same thing with the Black woman as well. It's anything negative in society, it's the Black woman's face put on it, depending on what we're speaking about. And like you mentioned, baby mama, ratchetness, single motherhood, all, whatever. It's that's basically the Black woman's face is imposed on that. So on the other side of the coin, with Black men, our face is put on negativity. Any negative aspect of society, our face is put on it. And I just think homophobia is like another one of those added pieces on there. But like I said before, I know it's in the Black community. Me saying this is not me saying, oh, well, there's no homophobia. There's no Black men who just hate gay people or whatever. I'm not saying that, because obviously that's there. That's a reality, and I'm not going to discredit what other people's experiences are. Obviously, there are people who deal with that kind of thing. So it's definitely there. But I just think all of this gets out there in the media. The media basically puts it out there that, well, this is a Black thing, homophobia. But homophobia, like I said, is in every community, because, if you look at, let's say, we'll just say like white Christians, for example, they lean on homophobia being a sin and all this other shit. Like, and I've seen and heard some of them say that, where they're against homosexuality because they see that it's a sin. I think I said homophobia before, but I meant homosexuality. They see homosexuality as a sin. Like I said, I've seen and heard them say things like that. I've seen it online, offline. I've even seen and heard Latinos speak like that too. And I've heard about homophobia within their community as well. So like I said, it's in every community, but I think what it is it's just communicated differently, or because we all communicate differently, because the Black community doesn't sound the same as the white community. The white community doesn't sound the same as the Latino community, the Asian community, or whichever. It just, I guess it sounds different. And then also it's about what you're exposed to. We're part of the Black community. So of course we're exposed to Black people. We're exposed to Black people because I guess we're in predominantly Black areas. We're hanging out with mostly Black people. So that's our exposure. But if, let's say, we were to hang around, more white people or more Latinos or more Asians or more Arabs or whoever, we might see a little bit more of what goes on inside of their community. And we might hear a little bit more of the homophobia, but we don't because we're not in those communities. So I think that's what it is. I just think it's about what people are exposed to. And I just think to wrap it up, because I know we got to get to what you're going to say. Basically with Jussie Smollett's brother bringing that up, I was just like, okay, we're leaning on this trope again. Like, we're doing this. I see what he's saying to a certain degree, because like you said, and I agree, there obviously is some homophobia in the Black community, but I just think it's like a trope that whether it's him or other people have leaned on for a while now. And I just think it's a bit dangerous, especially when you're doing that on a white media apparatus for the world to see, for the world to hear. So all that does is reinforce the idea that Black men are just these men who just hate homosexuals and transgenders, and it reinforces that idea to the masses. So that's why I say it's a little bit dangerous. So that's why when I heard it, I was just like, all right, here we go again. I mean, maybe, just maybe, Black people aren't supporting Jussie Smollett the way he would like to be supported is because we don't want to go for the bullshit. I mean, that could just be it. Like, dude, we don't want to support a hoax. You got caught in a lie. Like, how are we going to support that? That's my whole thing. So.
Gotcha. Yeah. So for me, the question, is it okay for Jussie Smollett to act pro-Black in order to get Black support? I think I would have probably preferred the question of, do I think Jussie Smollett is acting pro-Black in order to get Black support? In which I think the answer is no. Only because I am aware, and again, I'm not by any means saying that I'm a Jussie Smollett fan or that I even really knew of him before he joined Empire, because I did not. And to be honest, I didn't watch that show. I have knowledge that he was on the show, but I think I've seen maybe 2 full episodes of that whole show. I'm not a fan of Empire. Not a fan of Jussie's, or for that matter, anyone on the show besides Taraji P. Henson. Not a huge fan of Terrence Howard, particularly, actually. So I can't say that I'm in any way a Jussie Smollett fan. However, I did do some research, and apparently there is a list of different organizations that was actually presented at his trial, that included, not just HIV and AIDS organizations to help people, to provide resources to people with that, but Black education organizations. Apparently there were multiple, nonprofits for families who have, lost children to gun violence. He apparently has actually been very involved in the Black community, to the point where Black Lives Matter actually stood up in strong support of him. They sent in a letter to the judge and everything, speaking on his behalf. Because in my opinion, what this boils down to is, yes, obviously he was convicted of this being a hoax, and there is enough evidence to suggest that this simply didn't happen. And I honestly do believe in my heart it did not. I believe that he coordinated with those two guys to create this hoax because he was upset that the producers of Empire didn't take threats that he had received seriously. I believe that that is what happened. And I believe that Jussie is wrong for that. He should not have created this situation. He should not have, hoaxed a hate crime when there are real victims of hate crimes that this kind of thing takes away from their ability to comfortably speak out on that. However, that doesn't mean that his sentencing wasn't a little ridiculous. I mean, essentially, he was found guilty of perjury, okay, and filing false police reports. Since when does 150 days of jail justify that sentence or that charge? That it doesn't.
Yeah, that's a bit much.
150 days in jail, that's excessive. It's that simple. And I think Jussie was right. He got that sentence because he was Black and they were trying to make an example of him. It's that simple. I mean, it is what it is. Am I justifying the hoax part and the false part that, the false report he claimed, and obviously he wasted, police and emergency funds and stuff like that? Of course not. But, a lot of people file false police reports. I don't know the statistics, but I got to imagine some of them are white. Were all of them met with jail time with no criminal record? He has no prior criminal record. Jail time? 150 days of jail time? I would like to see the other cases that are similar in the sentencing portion of this case with a variety of suspects. I want to see all the white people, men and women, or people of other races in general who got Jussie's same charges and were sentenced to 150 days in jail. Because until someone can show me that, I agree with Jussie. They were trying to make an example of him with that sentencing.
Well, that part I do agree with,
because he was Black. Yeah.
That part in particular, I do agree with. I mean, because he's a Black man, and the system will always take a chance to make an example out of a Black man, gay, straight, or otherwise. The first thing is he's Black. He's a Black man. So, yeah, I agree with that part. Yeah.
Yeah, they did. And I agree with Jussie. They definitely did. Now, let's speak on the other elephant in the room related to this case. As I was previously stating, I do think that certain aspects of what you said are accurate. That when it comes to Black men and Black women in general, they tend to overgeneralize and stereotype us. And I do believe that there is homophobia in every single community, one way or another. I think there are generally homophobic human beings, whether they're in the Black community, Arab, Spanish, Asian, it doesn't matter, that they exist totally. But that doesn't mean that there's not a problem in our community. Just because it exists in other communities don't mean we shouldn't address the problem in ours. That's like the argument when people say, yeah, but so-and-so, that's like, it boils back to me when someone says, Jake, you shouldn't have pushed Carrie. But then Jake says, yeah, but Andrew slapped Mary. We ain't talking about what Andrew did. We're talking about what you did. And for me, I understand it. I get it. And yes, I understand that there could be, or, in place, whatever terminologies you want to use, an agenda to vilify Black men. I think there's an agenda to vilify Black people in general, in certain aspects. Absolutely. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't address the issue. And I'm sorry, but in my opinion, there is way more evidence to suggest that Black women are way more welcoming of the gay community than Black men.
I agree with that.
The argument is that the argument that I have heard people make is that Black women don't understand that there is an agenda or that they are perpetuating the agenda. And I disagree. I think that the reality of it is Black men, some of them, the ones who feel this way, obviously not all, because I would never make generalizations, feel like there is a threat to Black masculinity. Because there were once conversations about toxic masculinity, and the subjects of those, or the main subjects of those conversations, were Black men. And I think Black men after that got on the defensive and therefore decided that any subject where Black men could be targeted is an attack towards masculinity, towards their masculinity. I do believe that some Black men really feel that way. And perhaps there, situations that specifically happen to them that justify why they feel that way. But it doesn't mean it's not happening. And in my opinion, there is a little bit of all of that happening in this case. Yes, Jussie Smollett was wrong as hell for the hoax, because he made light of an issue that actually happened. He made light of a horrible incident that does actually happen to people. Hate crimes do happen to people, whether they're about race, whether they're about sexuality, whatever the gender, whatever the case may be, people do experience hate crimes. And for holding that hoax and lying, he was wrong. But Jussie Smollett wasn't wrong when he said he was being made an example of because he was a Black man. And he wasn't wrong, or his brother wasn't wrong, when he implied that there are some in the Black community who are simply not supporting him because he's gay. Now, I also think that another area that he needed to work on was his behavior in the courtroom. He did not help his case. Now, people can argue that there are some mental, obviously there's mental anguish there that caused him to act out. Sure, going to trial can cause that. But that's a situation where, if no other time than that, it's important to maintain composure as much as possible. I mean, I know it's difficult because that's human lives. And again, he's a Black man standing trial in America, right? And they were trying to make an example out of him. But he had a responsibility to approach that a different way. If his argument was, I'm an advocate for the Black community and et cetera, that was a time to engage properly rather than, throw accusations. I'm a big advocate for, it's all about approach. When you want to bring someone to the table, you bring them to the table through amicable and approachable dialogue. You don't throw insults and accusations, because that's going to just immediately put people in defense. It's very difficult to have an articulate dialogue with anyone about anything when you've put them in defense before the dialogue begun.
Right.
So
right. True.
I think that in this particular case, there are lots of things going on at once. Summarized, and these are my final thoughts on it. Jussie was wrong for the hoax. Jussie was wrong for lying and wasting community resources. Jussie was wrong for his outburst in court. Jussie was not wrong that he was being made an example as a Black man. Jussie was not wrong that there are some folks in the Black community who did not support him because they are homophobic. And Jussie did not attempt to use, pro-Black behavior in order to get Black support. Jussie's pro-Black. There's evidence in his behavior before his trial. And those are my thoughts on it.